Hello, I'm Blue. How do you do? Welcome to my channel, Blue Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the two novellas, Sunreach and Redawn, from the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson and Jancy Patterson. They fall between Starsight and Cytonic, so they are 2.1 and 2.2 in the series. I'm going to give you a quick overview of each and let you know if they are necessary reading before you continue with Cytonic. And then if for whatever reason you're not going to read them, I will give you a spoiler-filled recap so you can just watch that and feel like you're all caught up. There's also a prequel set in the Skyward universe called Defending Elysium, and a planned third novella which follows Jorgen, which is coming out after Cytonic, called Evershore. Neither of these are required reading before Cytonic, so I'll probably do a video on these at a later date. Let's get into it. So, Sunreach. This is the first novella and it overlaps with the events that happen at the end of Starsight. I'm just gonna put up a spoiler warning right now. If you haven't read Starsight, go do so now. It's great. Anyway, this book follows FM, or Freya Morgan, who of course is one of the members of Spencer's Starward flight, and it starts with her discovering a slug which has been brought back from the caverns by Jorgen, which of course we saw him going on a slug hunt at the end of Starsight, and did he find a big one? Well, not really, but he found lots of slugs. The book then follows FM's perspective in the battle that happens over detritus at the end of Starsight, and then the experiments with the slugs, aka hyperdrives. So, do you have to read this? The short answer is yes. There is a lot of vital information divulged in here, which I'm sure will be recapped in Cytonic, but I don't see how it can do it justice compared to reading this. Not only do we learn a lot more about the slugs, but there is character development which would just be jarring if you hadn't read this first. I also really recommend it. I absolutely love this book. It was so wonderful to spend time back with the Skyward flight, so if you felt like you were missing this during Starsight, this one's for you. The next one is Redawn, and we are reading from Alanik's perspective. We get to visit her planet and learn more about the Erdale, which comes with a whole bunch of interesting world building, character development, and politics. There's not much more I can say about this book without spoiling you for Sunreach, so I'm just gonna say, to the question of do you need to read this one? Yeah, you really do. Not only do we learn about Alanik and the Erdale, but this book was action-packed. A lot of import happens, which I'm sure will have huge consequences on the series as a whole going forward. I really enjoyed this book as well, had some nice character moments, and it was really funny in part, at the same time as being high stakes and non-stop action. I'm going to jump into spoilers for both of these, so if you haven't read them, go read them, or stick around if you're not planning on ever reading them so you can catch up. So, Sunreach. What did we learn? It was really interesting to see FM's perspective in the battle for detritus, and we see that the superiority, once the Delver is gone, starts firing the planetary missiles at detritus. But we're saved by the shield around the planet, which locks into place like a full force field, and they can't get through, which is pretty cool. The other thing we learn about is the slugs. Spencer popped in for a quick hi-bye at the end of Starsight just to let them know these slimy things are hyperdrives. So a team is put together consisting of Jorgen the Cytonic, Rick the engineer, and FM the slug rights activists to uncover their secrets. They discover that there are 3 different types of slugs. Conveniently, they are different colours. The yellow and blue ones, like Doomslug, of course are the hyperdrives. There are black and red ones. I'm pretty sure these ones are the communicators. And there are orange and I think purple ones, and these ones are boom slugs. And they can attack using mind blades, which one of them does to Jorgen because he's squeezing it too much. They discover pretty quickly what we learn in Starsight, that they can scare the slugs into hyperjump. During the process of figuring out how to make them hyperjump, and more importantly how to make them hyperjump to where they want them to, there is a little love story kindling, which is rather cute, between FM and Rick. In addition to this story, the other thing that's happening during this time is because Alanik, who is the alien who crash landed on detritus, is woken up. This is because detritus has been sent a message from Kuna, and she's basically sending out a distress signal. She's being attacked, no doubt, by Windsor and his forces. So the humans decide they need to wake Alanik to get the information from her about how to contact Kuna back. FM goes in first, and she is lovely to her, and they seem to make a quick bond. Then Jorgen's mother comes in. She is not a very nice lady, and she scares Alanik away. Literally, she just hyper jumps right out of there, and that's that. She's gone for the rest of the story. Anyway, with Alanik gone, they persist with their research and they manage to work out how to send a message back to Kuna. Then Jorgen manages to use the slugs to hyper jump the Skyward flight to Kuna to help. Once they get there, things are pretty hectic. Not just attacking ships, but there's like a giant space monster which is going to eat them. We have a scary moment where it looks like Jorgen dies, but really he's been hyper jumped to the planet with his slug. FM's freaking out, so her slug hyper jumps her to the planet where she finds Jorgen and Kuna, and they need to leave because they're about to be blown up. Jorgen needs to hyper jump Kuna back to detritus because that's the mission he was given. To do this, he would have to leave the rest of Skyward flight with no way to get back. He is prepared to do this when FM says, "No, I've made a bond with these slugs. They jumped me here because I was upset. We just need to ask them." So she gets Jorgen to send a mental image to the slugs, not of something scary, but of each of the Skyward flight members. One by one, the slugs go and grab each of the Skyward flights from their cockpits, and everyone's saved, and then they all jump back to detritus by FM saying the command home. All the slugs get caviar and everything is wonderful, except for the fact that Kuna then goes off with Joshua Wait, Jorgen's mother. That's not going to end well, because like I said before, she's horrible. Talking of Jorgen's mother, the next book, Redawn, begins from when Alanik's perspective, right after she's hyper jumped away and she returns home to Redawn, where she catches up with her mentor, and they're watching a sports game where the political parties own like the sports teams, which is pretty interesting. We learn there are two competing factions. There is the Unity Party, which is focused on peace, and they want to make peace with the superiority. And even though we don't know a lot about Alanik so far, we know that this is something she's strongly opposed to. She is part of instead a faction called the Independents, who want independence for the Airedale. The council, who is heavily made up of members of the Unity Party, wishes to meet with Alanik to learn what she's been doing, but she is resisting meeting up with them, so they pretty much try to kidnap her. They capture her mentor, but she manages to escape by hyper jumping out of there. She goes back to detritus because she needs help and doesn't know where else to go. Originally, she goes to Jorgen. Jorgen being Jorgen, he's gonna toe the line, he's gonna follow the chain of command. She ends up back with old mate Joshua Wait, and she's asking for help. Ultimately, humans decide not to help because they are communicating with the superiority. They're trying to negotiate a peace. Whilst they're discussing whether they're gonna help Alanik's people out or not, Alanik is hanging out with the Skyward flight when Cobb orders them not to help Alanik. It takes poor Jorgen a little while for it to get through his noggin to realize really Cobb is saying go help, but he can't formally order them to. So they run away with Alanik and with the ships, but not before Joshua Wait pretty much orders her own son to be shot down. But they've got some slugs, they've got two Cytonics, they jump out of there and they go back to Redawn. At Redawn, they're straight into the action against Unity, but eventually realize they'll need to take cover, regroup to come up with another plan. They end up landing on a platform very similar to the ones that orbit around detritus. They have automatic firing gun things, so they're pretty protected. This platform is called Wandering Leaf. They realize they're going to need Rick because they don't understand the mechanisms of it. So FM and Alanik decide to jump back to detritus to grab him, which is pretty high stakes because if they're caught, they'll be under court martial. There is a bit of fun in this sequence, and really the whole book. It's funny being in Alanik's head as she views the different culture that the humans have and how weird she finds, particularly the humans' awkwardness around mating pairs, as she calls it. FM has to divulge to the rest of the group that Rick is her boyfriend and their slugs are very used to jumping to each other. When they get Rick, he is happy to help out, but they need to get Alanik's ship, and whilst they're doing that, they realize the humans might actually give the other slugs over to the superiority as part of the peace deals. They obviously don't want this to happen, so Alanik calls as many slugs to her as she can before they escape. But before this happens, they see Cobb, and Cobb actually finds them, and rather than like helping them out or doing his best to slow things down in terms of them getting captured, he actually calls them out straight away, and they're just like, WTF. Anyway, when they're back at Wandering Leaf with Rick, they're able to get the platforms happening. With the help of the slugs, they can hyperjump it, they can add their weapons with Boom Slug. They have found a fourth type of slug, which is a cytonic inhibitor. So they're all slugged up, the slugs are loaded, they're ready for battle. The battle objective is to get back Alanik's mentor, Redawn, who has been heard on the radio telling people about how great this new peace deal with superiority is, which is very unlikely. To get him back, they create a diversion by jumping their platform to an inhabited tree, like a huge tree. It's like 50 kilometers high, which is where the Erdal live. Their planet is actually a giant gas ball which has big trees, and they live on them. Anyway, they jump to the platform in order to like threaten that they're going to attack. They're not actually going to attack because they're not bad peeps. But whilst this is happening, Alanik, with backup from Arturo, we'll put a pin in that because I'm really loving this relationship dynamic. There are some really interesting conversations happening between these two, and I kind of hope it stays platonic. Though I do ship them, I just really hate the trope in YA that every girl needs a guy and let's just couple everyone up. Anyway, they find Redawn, and he's acting super weird, and she's able to discover that he's actually an alien who is using the same technology that M-Bot made for Spencer to disguise herself as Alanik. When she realizes this, they need to change their plan. They see a ship that's speeding away with a cytonic inhibitor on it, so they work out he must be on that one. There's a really cool action fight, and they manage to get him back. He jumps straight on the radio to explain about the body double and explain that they now have an alliance with the humans. And there's a cute little moment where Jorgen like speaks on the radio being a hero. But then, much like what happened on Detritus, there's a huge spaceship appears, and it has the big planetary weapons on it, and it's going to take out the whole planet. Because from the superiority's point of view, the Ardale have been harboring humans, and it seems that the faction that was doing what they asked is now losing this battle, so they're just going to take them all out. Jorgen and his crew save the day by using the new slug platform, and they use Boom Slug, shooting out mind blades, and he takes out the weapons of the spaceship. Being the good guy he is, Jorgen then calls home to let Cobb know how their mission was a success and everything's all good. And he, just like FM and Alanik, realizes that Cobb is being weird. He asks to speak with his mother, and he warns her about the dangers. But of course she doesn't listen to him, and he learns that she and some other representatives are going to head out on a transport to meet with the superiority. So what happens is Jorgen and Alanik jump back to save the day again. Alanik manages to talk with Gran, who the leaders at Detritus are planning to trade to the superiority. How dare they? For this new peace. She's there with the real Cobb and also Kuna. Alanik realizes there's a bomb on the ship, so she manages to get Kuna out, while Gran hyper jumps Cobb out, which is awesome. Meanwhile, Jorgen has found his parents, who have been locked in a room, and he can see into them, but he cannot get them out. And they hear over a loudspeaker that they're going to be killed, and that's what they deserve for being human. It's quite an emotional scene. Jorgen's trying to break them out. He's trying everything. He can't do anything. And that's when his mother ends up saying, do better. Alanik is the one who actually jumps Jorgen out because he's not going. The book ends at Wandering Leaf with Jorgen wanting to head back to Platform Prime and wanting to sort some things out. So, overall, I love these. I love the slugs, I love their cool little mimicking, I loved reading from FM and Alanik's perspectives. It was a lovely change. I also enjoyed catching up with Kuna and the Skyward flight, all those buddies, it was lovely. Things I didn't love was it being a novella. I felt like it was rushed. The breakthroughs with the slugs just came too quickly. The second book was so action-packed. The pacing just felt a little off. There was like no chance to catch our breath. I understand why it's a novella, it's a short book, but I really would have preferred it being a much thicker book so we could have spent a little bit more with the characters, because what we got was awesome. I'm also of the opinion, unlike a lot of others that I've heard, that I really liked it being written by Jancy Patterson because the book had a slightly different feel. We still had the Skyward vibe, everything still felt in universe, but we're reading from a different perspective, so it made sense for the narrative to feel a little different. Jancy Patterson is also a young adult writer, and there were certain tropes in these novellas which, as much as I love Brandon Sanderson, I feel like Jancy handles them better. So it was actually a really clever decision by Brandon to have her continue this part of his story. My biggest negative was what I've already covered. I'd like these to be thicker, not only thicker, but I think they would have done much better as one book. I know each of them are kind of a complete little mini story in its own, but they overlap and they go really well together. It could have been one book with a part 1 and a part 2 to deal with the different perspectives. Just made a little bit more sense to me. Anywho, I'm really looking forward to Cytonic. These two novellas have made me even more excited for it, which I was already super hyped, so cannot wait. They also made me feel, though, that maybe we're not going to get a lot of the Skyward gang again. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. If you like this, consider subscribing for more Skyward series content coming soon. Also, if you have read any of these, please let me know in the comments below what's your favorite part in these books, because there were so many that I didn't have a chance to go into in this video, and I'd love to discuss them. And have a lovely day.